Pierre Boulez is a French composer, conductor, writer, and pianist. In his early career, Boulez played a key role in the development of integral serialism, controlled chants and electronic music. This, coupled with his highly polemical views on the evolution of music, gained him the image of an enfant terrible. As a conductor, Boulez is known mainly for his performances of Bach copyright La Bartók K, Alban Anton Bruckner, Claude Debussy, Gustav Mahler, Maurice Ravel, Arnold Schoenberg, Igor Stravinsky, Edgar Varese, Richard Wagner, and Anton Webern. Boulez is also a prolific writer on music and a former head of IRCAM. Biography. Early years. Boulez was born March 26, 1925, in Montbrison, Loire, France. From the age of 6 he was educated at the local Catholic school, where he spent 13-hour days and prayed in the chapel every school day for 10 years. The grueling schedule instilled in him an iron discipline but, for him, the Catholic God was the God that failed. As a child, he began piano lessons and demonstrated aptitude in both music and mathematics. He studied the latter at Lyon before pursuing music at the Paris Conservatoire under Olivier Messiaen and André Copyright Yves Vallerberg. Through Messiaen, Boulez discovered 12-tone technique Euro, which he would later study privately with Rena Copyright Leibowitzer Euro, and went on to write atonal music in a post-Weberian serial style. Boulez was initially part of a cadre of early supporters of Leibowitz, but due to an altercation with Leibowitz, their relations turned divisive, as Boulez spent much of his career promoting the music of Messiaen instead. The first fruits of this were his cantatas Le Visage Nuptial and Le Soleil des Eaux for female voices and orchestra, both composed in the late 1940s and revised several times since, as well as the Second Piano Sonata of 1948, a well-received 32-minute work that Boulez composed at the age of 23. Thereafter, Boulez was influenced by Messiaen's research to extend 12-tone technique beyond the realm of pitch organization, serializing durations, dynamics, mode of attack, and so on. This technique became known as integral serialism. Boulez quickly became one of the philosophical leaders of the post-war movement in the arts towards greater abstraction and experimentation. Many composers of Boulez's generation taught at the Internationale Ferienkurse für 1/4 Année Music in Darmstadt, Germany. According to Scott Burnham, in the so-called Darmstadt school composers were instrumental in creating a style that, for a time, existed as an antidote to music of nationalist fervor. An international, even cosmopolitan style, a style that could not be co-opted as propaganda in the way that the Nazis used, for example, the music of Ludwig van Beethoven. Boulez was in contact with many composers who would become influential, including Luciano Berio, John Cage, Luigi Nono, Bruno Maderna, and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Early in his career, he performed as a specialist on the Onze Martinet. Serialism. Boulez is totally serialized. Punctual works consist of polyphony X for 18 instruments, the two musique concrète et per multitudes, and structures, Book I for 2 pianos. Structures was also a turning point for Boulez. As one of the most visible totally serialized works, it became a lightning rod for various kinds of criticism. Paragraph R.G.Y. Ligeti, for example, published an article that examined its patterns of durations, dynamics, pitch, and attack types in great detail, concluding that its ascetic attitude is akin to compulsion neurosis, and that Boulez had to break away from it. And so he created the sensual feline world of the motto. These criticisms, combined with what Boulez felt was a lack of expressive flexibility in the language, as he outlined in his essay At the Limit of Fertile Land, had already led Boulez to refine his compositional language. He loosened the strictness of his total serialism into a more supple and strongly gestural music, and did not publicly reveal much about these techniques, which limited further discussion. His first venture into this new kind of serialism was a work for 12 solo voices titled Oubli Signal Lapide Copyright, but it was withdrawn after a single performance. Its material was reused in the 1970 composition Cummings' Der Dichter. Le Motto sans more registered trademarkte, Boulez's strongest achievement in this method is Le Marteau sans mot registered trademark for ensemble and voice, from 1953 to 1957, a keystone of 20th-century music. Le Marteau was a surprising and revolutionary synthesis of many different streams in modern music, as well as seeming to encompass the sound worlds of modern jazz, the Balinese gamelan, as well as traditional African and Japanese musics. Boulez described one of the work's innovations, called pitch multiplication, in several articles, most importantly in the chapter Musical Technique in Boulez 1971. It was Lev Kobliakov, however, who first described its presence in the three l'artisanat fureur movements of Le Marteau sans mot registered trademark in his 1981 doctoral thesis. However, an explanation of the processes themselves was not made until 1993. Other techniques used in the Boréas de Solitude cycle were first described by Ulrich Mosch, and later fully elaborated by him. Experimentation After Le Marteau sans mot registered trademark Boulez began to strengthen the position of the music of post-1945 composers through conducting and advocacy. He also began to consider new avenues in his own work. With Pli Salon Pli for orchestra with solo soprano, he began to work with an idea of improvisation and open-endedness. He considered how the conductor might be able to improvise on vague notations, such as the fermata, and how the players might improvise on irrational durations, such as grace notes. In addition, he worked with the idea of leaving the specific ordering of movements or sections of music open to be chosen for a particular night of a performance, an idea related to the polyvalent form of Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Interestingly, though the two works sound similar today, and certainly represent the same impeccable craft, Pli Salon Pli was not received as well as Le Marteau. This is perhaps more of a cultural barometer than a reflection on the work itself. During the time that Boulez was testing these new ideas, those colleagues who had never been entirely comfortable with the prominence of a rigorous musical language, such as Gyar Paragraph R.G.Y. Ligeti, had brought a convincing musical counter-argument to Boulez's musical ideals. In a poetic twist, Boulez had moved from peerless respect for Le Marteau sans mot registered trademark to seeming defeat with Pli Salon Pli, which sets poems by star copyright Fain Malama copyright, including one about the tripping impotence of a swan, unable to take flight from a frozen lake. Controlled chants. From the 1950s, beginning with the third piano sonata, Boulez experimented with what he called controlled chants, and he developed his views on aleatoric music in the articles Alla Copyright A, and Sonnet, Che mi vai tu? His use of chants, which he would later employ in compositions like A per Clat, Domains and Rituel in Memoriam Bruno Moderna, is very different from that in the works of, for example, John Cage. While in Cage's music the performers are often given the freedom to create completely unforeseen sounds, with the object of removing the composer's intention from the music, in works by Boulez they only get to choose between possibilities that have been written out in detail by the composer. A method that, when applied to the successional order of sections, is often described as mobile form, a formal technique innovated by his colleague Earl Brown in 1952 and originally inspired by Alexander Calder's sculptures. 1970s Boulez's output since the late 1970s has been of a very different kind from the early works that brought him to initial prominence. After a rapid succession of explosive works, such as the three cantatas on poetry by Rina copyright Cha, the first two piano sonatas, and other chamber music, compositions have tended to be contemplated and expanded over a long period of time, and have been performed in various stages of development. Explosantifiques, now resembling a flute concerto with electronics, was first published in 1971 as a sketch in the journal Tempo as a memorial tribute to Stravinsky, then worked out in various versions, including one for mixed octet with electronics performed in 1973. A per Clat multiples has remained a large fragment, and our copyright Rive 2 and Ra copyright Pons have been performed in various stages of development. The desire to expand unrealized possibilities has also led Boulez to create related works in series. His early 12 miniatures for piano, Notations, has, since the 1970s, been in the process of being expanded as an orchestral cycle. To date, at least 7 movements have been completed, although only 5 have been performed. The material contained in Anthem for solo violin was later expanded into an extended composition for violin and electronics Anthem 2, and Boulez is currently developing it further into a large-scale work for violin and orchestra. Incisors, a short work for solo piano, has since exploded into soar incisors for 3 percussive groups in 2 very extended movements. Electronic music. After the 1960s, during which he had produced little, Boulez began to turn back to the electronic medium and to large extended works. Although unsatisfied with the products of his work with tape in the 1950s, he began to explore the possibilities of live electronic sound manipulation. His first attempt was the 1973 version of Explos Antiphix. However, at around this time President Georges Pompidou began to discuss with Boulez the possibility of creating an institute for the exploration and development of modern music where there would be a chance to explore the medium seriously. This was to become IRCAM. At IRCAM, Boulez created an environment where composers would have at hand the best performers available, and where the most advanced technology and computer scientists would be at their service. Boulez now began to explore the use of electronic sound transformation in real time. Previously, electronic music had to be recorded to tape, which thus fixed it. The temporal aspect of any live music making in which it played a part had to be coordinated with the tape exactly. Boulez found this impossibly restrictive. Now at IRCAM, he composed raw copyright PONs, for 6 soloists, chamber orchestra, and live electronics. With the assistance of Andrew Gerzso, Boulez fashioned a work in which the computer captured the resonance and spatialization of sounds created by the ensemble and processed them in real time. Recent years. Today, Boulez remains one of the leading exponents of 20th century music. His compositions have made a contribution to musical culture, and his advocacy of modern and postmodern music has been decisive for many. Boulez continues to conduct and compose. From 1976 to 1995, Boulez held the chair in Invention, Technique et Langage en Musique at the Collège de France. In 2001, he was the recipient of the Grammy Prize for Music Composition, for his work Soar Incisors. In 2002, he was awarded the Glenn Gould Prize for his contributions. In 2004, with festival director Michael Hayfliger, he founded the Lucerne Festival Academy, a summer orchestral institute for young musicians, dedicated to music of the 20th and 21st centuries. The resident professors are members of the Ensemble Intercontemporain. Early in 2012, Boulez cancelled conducting engagements after an eye operation left him with severely impaired sight. Other health problems have included a shoulder injury resulting from a fall. Boulez as a conductor. Boulez is also a conductor, known for having directed most of the world's leading symphony orchestras and ensembles since the late 50s. He served concurrently as musical advisor of the Cleveland Orchestra from 1970 to 1972, chief conductor of the BBC Symphony Orchestra from 1971 to 1975, and music director of the New York Philharmonic from 1971 to 1977. In addition, he was the music director at the Ojai Music Festival on 8 different occasions from 1967 to 2003. He is currently the conductor emeritus of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, after having been its principal guest conductor. The orchestras which he has conducted in recent years include the Berlin and Vienna Philharmonics, the London Symphony Orchestra, the Orchestre de Paris, the Ensemble Intercontemporain, and the Mahler Chamber Orchestra. In 2005, he began a collaboration with the Staatskapelle Berlin. Boulez is particularly famed for his polished interpretations of 20th-century classics Alban Berg, Claude Debussy, Gustav Mahler, Arnold Schoenberg, Igor Stravinsky, Bach copyright La Bartók K, Anton Webern and Edgard Varese as well as for numerous performances of contemporary music. Clarity, precision, rhythmic agility and a respect for the composer's intentions as notated in the musical score are the hallmarks of his conducting style. In 1984, he collaborated with Frank Zappa and conducted the Ensemble Intercontemporain, who performed 3 of Zappa's pieces. He never uses a baton, conducting with his hands alone. His 19th-century repertoire focuses upon Ludwig van Beethoven, Hector Berlioz, Robert Schumann and especially Richard Wagner. His recording of Anton Bruckner's 8th Symphony has met with considerable critical acclaim. In 1974, he also recorded Maurice Ravel's then little-known orchestral version of Une barque sur l'eau, copyrighted from Iwas, when there was still no printed score. The score was published only in 1983, and even then in only the first of 2 slightly different versions Ravel had made. During his tenure as music director of the New York Philharmonic, he was criticized, even by members of the orchestra, for his concentration on modern repertoire. Nonetheless, Boulez's controversial rock concerts of contemporary music with members of the New York Philharmonic played a significant role in bridging the widening gap between the New York downtown music scene with concerts of uptown music, directed primarily at Columbia University by a former classmate at the Paris Conservatoire and a pupil of Leibowitz, Jacques-Louis Monod. In his 1981 volume of compilation of reviews from the New York Times, Facing the Music, critic Harold C. Schonberg includes a column in which he details how unhappy some members of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra were with Boulez during his tenure. Boulez has also conducted opera productions and made several recordings of opera. He joined the Bayreuth Festival's roster for 1966's Parsifal, after Hans Knappertsbusch died. Subsequently, he was the conductor for the 1976 centenary production of Richard Wagner's Der Ring der Nibelungen, directed by Patrice Carr, copyright Rowe, recordings of which were commercially released in audio and video formats. Boulez reunited with Carr, copyright Rowe, for a late 70s production of Alban Lulu at the Paris Opera and a 2007 production originating at Vienna's Theater an der Wien, later traveling to Amsterdam, of Leo Janner Infinite X from the House of the Dead, in what Boulez said was the last opera production that he would ever conduct. In 2004 and 2005, Boulez returned to Bayreuth to conduct a controversial new production of Parsifal directed by Christoph Schlingensief. Other operas Boulez conducted include Berg's Wozzeck, Wagner's Tristan und Isolde, Bartók's Bluebeard's Castle, Debussy's Pella, copyright A. Mar, copyright Lissand, and Arnold Schoenberg's Moses Underen. On August 15, 2008, he conducted a concert of the music of Leo Janner Infinite Ek for the BBC Proms at the Royal Albert Hall, preceded by a discussion of the music with Roger Wright, director of the Proms, in the Royal College of Music. In 2010, Boulez finished recording his 15-year, multi-orchestra Mahler cycle for Deutsche Grammophon with the Adagio from Mahler's uncompleted 10th Symphony with the Cleveland Orchestra. To celebrate Boulez's 85th birthday, Deutsche Grammophon released his first Karol Szymanowski recording featuring the composer's popular Violin Concerto No. 1 and Symphony No. 3 Song of the Night, with the Wiener Philharmoniker, violinist Christian Teslev, tenor Steve Davischlim and the Wiener Singverein. In 2015, Deutsche Grammophon issued a 44-CD limited edition box set of Boulez's recordings of 20th century music to celebrate his 90th birthday, including works by Bartók, Berg, Harrison Birtwistle, Debussy, Ligeti, Messiaen, Ravel, Schoenberg, Stravinsky, and Boulez himself. Boulez as a writer, Boulez has been called an articulate, perceptive and sweeping writer on music. He has written on questions of technique and aesthetics in a reflective if sometimes elliptical manner. These writings have mostly been republished under the title Stock Takings from an Apprenticeship, Orientations, Collected Writings, and Boulez on Music Today, as well as in the Journal of the Darmstadt Composers of the Time, Diary. A third edition of the French texts, with previously uncollected material, has appeared under the title Points de Reparie, 2, and 3. 2 interviews with Pierre Boulez were published in 2007 and 2008. Boulez as a performer, during the war and for a number of years following the liberation, Boulez performed in various capacities on the piano and allied keyboard instruments, often as a supplemental musician in orchestral works with choirs and soloists. This activity not only provided him with income, but also gave the young artist the opportunity of meeting and working with important personalities of the time, such as Arthur Honegger. It was as a pianist that Boulez first introduced himself to UK audiences, in a partial premiere of Book 2 of his Structures for Two Pianos, which he performed together with Yvonne Loriod at the Igmore Hall, London, in March 1957. The same performers gave the premiere of the complete second book, with two different versions of Chapter 2, in a chamber music concert that was part of the Donna Weschinger Music Tage on October 21, 1961. Selected compositions: Piano Sonata No. 1, Le Visage Nuptial, Piano Sonata No. 2, Le Soleil des Eaux, Livre pour Quatuor, Polyphony X Structures, Livre IA2, Le Marteau sans More Registered Trademarked, Piano Sonata No. 3, Pli Salon Pli, Figures, Doubles, Prisms, A Permale Clat Multiples. Domains, Cummings' Der Dichter, Rituel, In Memoriam Bruno Moderna, Messagesquis, Notations, Ra Copyright Pons, Dialogue de l'Embré Double, Da Copyright Rive 1, Da Copyright Rive 2. Explos Antifiques. Sur Incises, Dialogue de l'Embré Double, Anthemes 2, Une Page da Copyright Fair Copyright Mar Copyright Ride. Decorations and Awards, 26 Grammy Awards, Commander of the Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, Merit Cross First Class of the Federal Republic of Germany, 1963, Member of the Academy of Arts Berlin, 1976, Prix France Allemagne, 1979, Ernst von Siemens Music Prize, 1983, Austrian Decoration for Science and Art, 1985, La Copyright Oni Sunning Music Prize, 1989, Premium Imperial, 1990, Gold Medal of Vienna, 1992, Theodore W. Adorno Award, 1995, German Record Critics Award, 1995, Artist of the Year by the British music magazine The Gramophone, 1995, Ceremony at the Victoires de la Musique in France, 1996, Polar Music Prize, 1996, Berlin Art Prize, 1997, Royal Philharmonic Society Gold Medal, 2000, Wolf Prize, 2001, University of Louisville Grammy Award for Music Composition, for Sur Incises, 2001, Grand Cross of the Order of St. James of the Sword, 2002, Glenn Gould Prize, 2004, Golden Medal of Honor of Baden-Baden, 2008, Franco-German Cultural Award, 2009, Kyoto Prize. 2010, Edison Award, 2011, Colburn Prize, 2011, Medal of Salzburg, 2011, Gigahertz Prize, 2012, Robert Schumann Prize for Poetry and Music, Paul Ammar Copyright Right, Sanford Medal, Member of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts, 2012, Gramophone Hall of Fame Entrant, 2012, the BBVA Foundation Frontiers of Knowledge Award in the Contemporary Music category. Bibliography. References. External links, Pierre Boulez et al. Music, Pierre Boulez Biography and Works on the UE website, Pierre Boulez Interview with Andy Carvin, 1992, Pierre Boulez Composition Today Articles and Review of Works, Pierre Boulez Photographic Portrait by Philippe Gontier, Tomasini, Anthony, Boulez salutes Bits and Bytes with an artistic partnership. New York Times, April 25, 2005. Clements, Andrew and Service, Tom, a master who worked with a very small hammer. The Guardian, March 25, 2005. Boulez interviewed by Charles Amerkanian, with Andrew Gerzso, February 16, 1986, excerpts from sound archives of Boulez's works. A biography on IRCAM's website, 2 interviews with Pierre Boulez by Bruce Duffy, February 20, 1986 and October 26, 1987.